Next up for Vincent was the 1939 movie, The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, a costume period piece that would place Price in the presence of some of the biggest stars of the day, Olivia de Havilland, Bette Davis, and Errol Flynn. It was a far cry from the quirky comedy he'd made the year before. This was an epic film, a cast of thousands type tale, shot in color with major studio backing. It concerns the on-again, off-again love affair with Queen Elizabeth I, played by Bette Davis, and the Earl of Essex, Robert Devereux, played by Errol Flynn. In it, Price plays the role of Sir Walter Raleigh, a foil for Flynn and rival for the Queen's attention. There is one memorable scene where Essex confronts Raleigh and tweaks him over the fancy silver armor he's wearing in the castle.
Sir Walter's in silver, they said. The world has been outdone. The moon, outmooned.
You need not repeat them.
Oh, but I insist. The design, the workmanship. Look, Bacon, magnificent, is it not? And I said to myself, the great man. This is what we've always needed. More silver armor. Silver everywhere. Oceans of silver. So Walter set the style, the world will follow. And when I heard that Her Majesty herself had admired it, I... Wait, gentlemen, a moment. Oh, there, guard, attend me. I straightway sent for the silversmiths and had them produce enough armor for the Queen's personal guard.
But otherwise, Price has little to do in this picture. It was a learning experience for Vincent, however, dealing with Hollywood egos and a shooting atmosphere that was full of tension. As it is well documented, leading stars Bette Davis and Errol Flynn didn't get along, and Davis, in fact, objected to Flynn's casting as the lead. Vincent's next picture would reunite him with director Roland V. Lee, with whom Price had worked previously the year before on Service to Lois. Tower of London from 1939 is a milestone in the career of Price, as it teamed him with horror legends Boris Karloff and Basil Rathbone, both of whom Price would go on to work again in the future, both separately and together. Tower of London is another costume period piece, starring Basil Rathbone as Richard III, the Duke of Gloucester. Richard is sixth in line to the crown of England, but decides to take a shortcut to the throne: murder. He keeps a diorama in his private chamber with miniature figurines of each person who stands in his way, and as each is eliminated, he tosses the figure into the fire. Physically inferior, deformed at birth with a hunchback, Richard has enlisted the aid of the castle's club-footed executioner Mord, played by Boris Karloff, as his strong-armed compatriot. Together they eliminate those standing in Richard's path one by one, including Richard's own brother Clarence, played by Price. In one of the best scenes of the movie, Clarence has a drinking contest with Richard, quaffing mug after mug of wine, Vincent laughing madly throughout.
I've won!
It is a scene reminiscent of one Vincent would play again 23 years later in Tales of Terror, opposite Peter Lorre, another drinking contest, that time played for laughs.
It all started at the Vintners Convention, where the lover of wine met the professional wine taster.
In Tower of London, the drinking contest ends badly for Price, however, with Richard and Mord unceremoniously dumping him headfirst into a giant cask of Malmsey wine, drowning him.
Yes, for Malmsey.
This was, by the way, Vincent's very first death scene. Karloff steals the show in Tower, particularly while stomping around the dungeon showing off his various instruments of torture. His makeup is nothing short of magnificent, designed by the one and only Jack Pierce, with whom Karloff was very familiar, having worked with him on 9 films up to that point, including Son of Frankenstein, also directed by Roland V. Lee, earlier that year. This film has kind of fallen between the cracks, all but forgotten by the general public nowadays, but classic horror fans should seek it out, if only for Karloff's menacing role as Mord. Basil is terrific as the scheming, backstabbing Richard as well, and Price's death scene alone is worth watching, especially as he's done in by two horror legends. Tower of London would be remade in 1962 by director Roger Corman, this time featuring Price in the lead role of Richard. You know, many people speculate on which film is the first horror film of Price's career, and for my money, it's Tower of London. Even though it's a loosely based historical drama, it's still ripe with dark horror imagery, including hangings, torture, even small children being killed. The presence of Rathbone and Karloff just served to further cement this one in the horror field for me. Join me back here next week as we take a look at The Invisible Man Returns.
Here at the bank, we've discovered a fascinating pastime. Hangman. Each player puts a word here. Wrong window. Then they try to guess each other's words. L?
Nope. G?
No. Endorse it. Q?
R.
Right. A?
Nope. L?
No. N. Wrong bank. If you have a little time to kill, get.
Hangman! I won!
I can't play with these interruptions. Hangman from Milton Bradley.